Ian Huntley is known as one of the UK's most evil killers. He kidnapped and murdered two innocent 10-year-old girls who were out to buy sweets from the shop. His partner, Maxine Carr, who helped teach the girls at school as a teaching assistant, helped cover up the crimes. But it is unclear just how much she knew. Huntley was born in Grimsby in 1974. Like many murderers, he had a troubled life as a child. He was bullied mercilessly at school. Children called him Spadehead or Spacehead because he had a large forehead as a child. He was also a loner at school who failed to form any attachments or relationships with school kids. At secondary school, he even had to change schools because of the intensity of the bullying. He also walked in on his father cheating on his mother with another woman. Not just any woman either, but his very own babysitter who was only 16 years old. His father bullied and threatened him into keeping this secret from his mother. This would have completely changed his perceptions and worldview. All illusions of trust, loyalty, accountability and truth would have been destroyed by one of his primary caregivers. It showed him that lies were not a bad thing, but a useful tool to get what you want without consequence. Also, in order to regain a sense of power and control taken from him by bullies, he became a bully himself. He also had a history of harming animals, including killing a puppy. Also, according to psychologist and true crime expert Emma Kenny, there is speculation that he was abused as a child. This was because he allegedly used to hang around with a sex offender named Fern. Huntley would apparently do acts of cottaging with Fern in exchange for money. Also, as a 16-year-old, he was invited to a young girl's 12-year-old birthday party. For a present, he gave her sexy red underwear, which is extremely worrying, creepy and strange. As he grew up, he also told his mother about the secret he had been keeping about his father. His mum left his dad and moved out with Ian and his brother Wayne. His dad was furious at Ian, who believed his son had betrayed him. His dad also began to be violent towards him. Huntley's perceptions of relationships would further be shattered when his mum then became involved in a lesbian relationship. When he reached adulthood, he would work a string of menial jobs. His co-workers would later remark about his sexist tendencies in the workplace. Often he would bully and tease female colleagues. Like a true psychopath, he would lie about his credentials, pretending to be an RAF officer. He had always wanted to join the RAF, but was not good enough to meet recruitment standards. So instead, he lied about his career, especially to young girls. He had a predilection for young females as an adult. He married an 18-year-old named Claire Evans in 1994. However, he soon became physically violent towards her, once even causing a miscarriage. As to be expected, the relationship would not last. He also illegally impregnated a 15-year-old child named Katie Webber in 1998. Huntley, a 21-year-old man at this time, had her living with him and he beat her and isolated her during this time. When she was 3 months pregnant, he even kicked her down the stairs. Webber then left to protect her unborn baby Samantha. Like most weak men, he preyed upon vulnerable victims. He would target young girls who did not yet have the mental maturity to deal with the realities of a sexual relationship, especially with a fully developed adult male. It is estimated that he had groomed around 60 young girls whilst in his 20s. Numerous underage sex allegations were made to social services and police. Shockingly, in 1998, he was also charged with burglary and rape against an 18-year-old girl. However, both cases against him were dropped because of a lack of evidence and failures in the investigations. He also had another 2 rape allegations and an indecent assault allegation made against him at this time. But again, there was not enough evidence to convict him. It seems that in many of these cases, the victims' families and the girl did not want people to find out about the crime and often refused to press charges. However, with such a long string of allegations, they should have pursued the investigations anyway. Also, when talking about crimes against female adults, he often claimed that the sex was consensual. Somehow, this was enough to persuade the police he was innocent. Huntley also came to the attention of social services 5 times because of his actions, but no action was ever taken. With the cumulative claims made against him, it is extremely worrying that Huntley was not investigated further or placed under surveillance. At the very least, he should have been placed on a register. It seems that in his relationships, he would take out his childhood frustrations on his partners. He would become the bully that he once feared and hated. He was a controlling, violent and abusive partner. His worldview was understandably shattered further when his wife left him for his younger brother Wayne. To him, yet another family member had betrayed him. This would have left him feeling he had no one left to trust. However, Ian held on to his little bit of control for as long as he could. He refused to sign the divorce papers until 1999 to prevent his younger brother and ex-wife from marrying. That same year, as a 25-year-old, he also met 22-year-old Maxine Carr, who would go on to become one of the most hated women in the UK. After only 4 weeks, Carr and Huntley were already living together. Carr was yet another younger woman and was initially fooled by Huntley's initial love bombing. For Huntley, this was a successful tactic to use against young women. He would constantly show them affection and heap compliments on them to get his foot in the door. Now, a more experienced woman may see straight through this manipulation tactic, but a young woman like Carr, who received little attention growing up, fell straight into the trap. He would then start chipping away at her self-esteem and gradually add in elements of control. Interestingly enough, Carr was also bullied growing up and developed an eating disorder and a habit of farming. This meant she was an easy, vulnerable target for Huntley. In 1999, the people of Grimsby discovered Huntley was a beast and attacked his home. They smashed his windows, booted his door in and ransacked his house. In the year 2000, the couple moved 30 miles to Scunthorpe. However, the police were soon at the door because of allegations against Ian. This is allegedly why the couple had moved in the first place, to escape allegations made against him. As told by neighbour Marissa Gibb, Ian continued his controlling ways against Maxine. For example, she was not allowed any guests in the house, and when Marissa visited, she had to clean any evidence such as cups of coffee to stop him from finding out. She also claimed she saw him hitting her and telling Maxine, "You do what you are told, you do what I tell you." A year later, in 2001, they moved again, this time down south to Soham. Maxine was given a job as a teaching assistant at St Andrew's Primary School. Huntley got himself a job as a caretaker at Soham Village College nearby. This would seem like a nice little move on the face of it. Both successfully managed to get jobs in neighbouring campuses so they could both be closer to each other, and were even given a cottage to live in as part of Ian's job. However, considering Huntley's past and his crimes against children, it is highly disturbing that he and his girlfriend would choose jobs that gave them both access to young girls. It is also extremely worrying that Huntley even managed to get a job, as proper background checks should have eliminated him from the application process. Also, the last caretaker was fired for having an inappropriate relationship with a student, so the school should have been on high alert to screen against people like Huntley. On Sunday, the 4th of August 2002, two 10-year-old children, Jessica Chapman and Holly Wells, went missing. These two girls were in the class where Maxine Carr worked as a teaching assistant. On that day, the two girls were enjoying a family barbecue at Holly's house. But when the two girls walked to the shops to buy some sweets, they disappeared. Holly's parents believed the two girls were upstairs in Holly's bedroom, as they did not tell them they were going to the shops. When they discovered they weren't indoors, they immediately phoned the police. The following day, police and residents swarmed the area to help look for the two girls. They hoped the girls had just gotten lost in the countryside of Cambridgeshire. It became a media frenzy and one of the largest police investigations in UK history. However, after a week, no sign of them could be found. It was Sky News that started to unravel the mystery on the 15th of August when an odd-looking witness was interviewed. That man was Ian Huntley, who claimed he may have been the last person to see them alive.
You're the school caretaker. The girls, Jessica and Holly, would know you, and they saw you on the front doorstep. What went on?
Well, I don't know the girls. I stood on the front doorstep grooming my dog down. She'd run away and come back a bit of a mess. They just came across and asked how Miss Carr was, as she used to teach them at St Andrews. I just said she weren't very good as she hadn't got the job. And they just said, please tell her that we're very sorry. And off they walked in the direction of the library over there.
How did they seem to you?
They seemed fine, very cheerful, happy, chatty. I didn't see anything untoward, nobody hanging around. You know, just seemed like normal, happy kids.
Safe and well?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may, as it turned out, have been the last person to actually chat to them before they vanished.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Maxine Carr was also interviewed by Sky News, who had some strange responses. On a number of occasions, she referred to the girls in past tense.
They wouldn't say a bad word about anybody, and they love their families and everything, which is why nobody believes that they would ever run away. They was very close to all their family. This is something I'll probably keep for the rest of my life, I think. It's what Holly gave me on the last day of term. She was very upset, and that's the kind of girl she was. She was just lovely, really lovely.
Reporter Brian Farmer also gave accounts of a bizarre answer by Huntley whilst being interviewed. Farmer asked Carr, as she knew the girls, what they would do if a man asked them to get into a vehicle with them. But before Carr could answer, Huntley butted in with an answer. He said Holly would probably get in and be quiet, but Jessica would fight and go mad. These interviews, and Ian, who had taken an unusual and noticeable interest in the case, made police suspicious. As has historically been shown, criminals often appear at crime scenes as onlookers or bystanders, or active volunteers in investigations. So, Huntley's continued presence during the investigation was noted. He even went so far as to approach a police car and ask the police how long DNA evidence lasted. On the 16th of August, the couple were brought in for questioning, whilst police investigators searched their home and nearby Soham Village College. During police interviews, Maxine gave Huntley a fake alibi, allowing him to go free. She claimed Ian had spent the night with her in their home the night the girls disappeared. On the 17th of August, police found evidence in the bins of Huntley's workplace. They found the charred remains of 2 Manchester United tops the girls had been wearing when they disappeared. They also found girls' tracksuit bottoms, trainers and underwear. They were soon identified as the clothing of Holly and Jessica by forensic scientists. They also found hair fibres of Ian Huntley on the clothing. Huntley had previously tried to cover his tracks by telling a police officer that the previous caretaker had keys to the college and had possibly been in and out of the college. However, instead of throwing the police off his scent, the police officer phoned the inquiry line to have Huntley listed as a person of interest. He and Maxine were subsequently arrested on suspicion of abduction and murder. Maxine then retracted her alibi, as that night she was actually in Grimsby. Sadly, the remains of Holly and Jessica would be found shortly after in a ditch near an airbase in Midenhall in Suffolk.
It is with great sadness that I have to tell you the following news. It may be some days yet before we are able to positively identify the 2 bodies found at Common Drove near Lakenheath in Suffolk yesterday lunchtime. However, we are certain, as we possibly can be tonight, that they are those of Holly and Jessica. Holly and Jessica's families have been told this terrible news.
It was found that Huntley had meticulously cleaned his car and the inside of his home after the girls had gone missing. He also had the tyres changed on his car to cover his tracks. However, despite his efforts, fibres from the girls' clothing were found in the downstairs area, upstairs and in the bathroom of his home. The soil on the chassis of his car also matched that of the soil at the disposal site. Also, mobile phone experts were able to show that Jessica's mobile phone was turned off at Ian Huntley's home. When Huntley was arrested, he feigned insanity by becoming catatonic and dribbling at the mouth. But when he was sent for a mental health evaluation, they found him to be faking it. On April 16th, 2003, Huntley pleaded not guilty to the crime. This meant a trial would have to be held, taking place at the 3rd of November. 1 month before the trial, Ian changed his story, saying the girls had accidentally died in an accident at his home, and that he then disposed of the bodies. In court, he claimed one of the girls fell into the bath after a nosebleed and accidentally died. He then claimed he accidentally killed the other girl whilst covering her mouth to prevent her from screaming. It has also been claimed that moments before meeting the girls, Ian had had a blazing row with Maxine on the phone after finding out she had been cheating on him. It is speculated that the rage drove him to take out his anger and kill the 2 girls. However, only Ian truly knows why he did it, and he has refused to elaborate further. Huntley would be found guilty of kidnapping and murdering the 2 girls. He received 2 life sentences and was sent to Belmarsh prison. Maxine would be found guilty of perverting the course of justice and would be sentenced to 3.5 years in Holloway prison. It is unclear just how much Maxine knew about the murders. She claimed she did not know anything about them and that she never believed Ian had killed them, or she would never have lied.
His fingerprints have been found. The bag where the bin was in. He wanted facts, and he wanted to know about the forensic side. I can't help it. I can't help it.
It also must be said that Carr was one of Ian's victims herself. She was domestically abused and controlled by Ian throughout their relationship. Domestic abusers also use various mental manipulation tactics to control and terrify their partners. She may have been completely manipulated and scared into lying for Huntley. Ian has since claimed she was fully aware of the murder and had helped him get rid of the evidence. However, he was an abusive control freak who lied about his own guilt, so his story of events is highly questionable. However, the press and public were unforgiving. She had to go into hiding with a changed identity when she was released in 2004. Huntley has thankfully suffered badly in prison. He has made attempts at his own life. He has also been scalded with hot water by murderer Mark Hobson. He also got slashed across the throat in 2010 by armed robber Damien Fowkes. Unfortunately, Huntley survived, but he did receive 21 stitches. It seems that Ian Huntley is one of the most hated men in the British prison system. Even serial killer Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, called him a child-killing bastard.